November 17, 2017, 7:07 p.m. EST. The 450 Canadian troops stationed in Latvia face little danger from actual Russian military forces, which remain for now safely ensconced on the other side of the border. But they have been the target of repeated information warfare salvos in the 5 months since they arrived in the tiny Baltic country, as fake news designed to discredit NATO forces is routinely disseminated online, say Latvian and Canadian officials. The disinformation ranges from stories about Canadians being accommodated in luxury apartments at local taxpayers' expense, to images that purport to show them littering indiscriminately or fixated on buying beer, Latvia's defense minister told the National Post this week. And the campaign began with stories suggesting Russell Williams, the former Air Force colonel and convicted serial killer, still commanded Canada's biggest air base. In response, close to a dozen Canadian soldiers in Latvia have been tasked to keep tabs on the propaganda disseminated against them, a Canadian Forces spokesman said. This disinformation happens frequently, said Janis Garrisons, Latvia's State Secretary of Defense, in an interview while visiting the Toronto-based Mackenzie Institute. People see such news and they get angry and things like that. If you don't stop it, in a timely fashion, then you've got problems. The Canadian soldiers lead a multinational NATO battle group in Latvia, a nation of 2 million on Russia's western flank. It's a branch of Enhanced Forward Presence. The program launched last year amid fears that Russia's incursions into Ukraine could be repeated elsewhere in the former communist bloc. Despite reports of discontent among Latvians, almost a third of whom are ethnic Russians, polling suggests more than 60% back the NATO presence, and Canadian troops specifically have been warmly received, said the minister. We have certainly seen a variety of activity on the internet aimed at discrediting us and our partners, said Capt. Kirk Sullivan, Public Affairs Officer with the Force's Joint Operations Command. A lot of our efforts are geared toward monitoring that coverage, ensuring we remain aware of it, advising our leadership and our commanders that an appropriate response is required. Information warfare tactics have become a hot topic worldwide of late, but it's somewhat new for the Canadian Armed Forces, he said. Just a week ago, pictures surfaced online that purported to depict Canadian troops buying up large quantities of beer in Latvian shops, said Garrisons. In fact, the photos had been taken 3 years earlier and featured American soldiers. One lady published on Facebook a conversation with a taxi driver, who was telling her all Canadian troops, foreign troops were not living in camps, they were living in luxury apartments, and our government is paying for it, Garrisons added. We saw immediately that it is spreading and we reacted immediately when we saw that might be a problem. In fact, only 8 members of the Canadian contingent are living in civilian accommodation and at Canada's expense, said Sullivan. Another episode featured a photograph of water bottles and military ration packages discarded in the woods, depicted on a Russian-language pet lover's Facebook page as the work of current NATO troops.